Have you ever noticed how differently people respond when a difficult conversation shows up? Some people want to talk immediately. Some people withdraw completely. And some people say something that can feel frustrating in the moment. They say, "Give me a little time to think about this." If you're someone who wants to resolve things quickly, that response can feel like avoidance. It can feel like the other person is stalling or, even worse, disengaging. But sometimes that pause has nothing to do with avoidance. Sometimes it has everything to do with clarity. Today I want to talk about why some people need time before they can talk, and why understanding that can completely change the way that we approach conflict. Hello and welcome to Thrive Within. I am your host, Marc, a life coach, educator, and someone who's passionate about helping you live more fully, honestly, and aligned with who you really are. This podcast is your space for real talk and focused coaching on things like confidence, purpose, boundaries, self-doubt, and personal growth. So whether you're in a walk, taking a break, or just giving your brain a moment to breathe, I am so glad you're here. Let's get into it. One of the biggest misunderstandings in communication is assuming that everyone processes emotions at the same speed. Some people, they think while they speak. They can talk through the issue in real time. Other people, they need space. They need to sit with what was said. They need time to understand what they feel before they respond. Now, neither approach is wrong. It's just there's simply different ways of processing. But when those two styles collide, frustration can appear so quickly. If someone who processes slowly is pushed into a conversation too quickly, something interesting happens. They respond before they fully understand their own emotions. And when that happens, that response often comes from the emotional part of the brain instead of the thoughtful part. And that's when conversations, they escalate. People start to say things that they don't fully mean because they're reacting defensively, or they just shut down completely. Now, sometimes just a little bit of space, just a little bit, can prevent that escalation. Not because the conversation is being avoided, but because the person wants to return to it with clarity instead of emotion. Now, if you're someone like me, someone whose instinct is to move toward the issue, waiting can feel incredibly uncomfortable. When something's unresolved, it creates tension, and that tension can make you want to just fix the solution, find the solution, and fix the situation quickly. You might think, oh man, if we can just talk about this, we can just clear it up. And sometimes that instinct is helpful, but sometimes the other person just simply isn't ready for that conversation yet. And pushing too hard can make the situation worse instead of better. When someone asks for time, it doesn't always mean that they're avoiding the conversation. It often means that they're respecting it. They want to think carefully about what's said, and they want to respond intentionally instead of reacting emotionally. And that pause can actually protect the relationship because it allows both people to return to the conversation with clear thinking. Believe it or not, patience builds trust. One of the most underrated skills in communications is patience. When someone says they need time, give them the space that sends, giving them that space sends an important message. It says, I respect your response. And that respect, that builds trust. Because the other person knows that they're not being rushed into a reaction they might regret. And over time, that kind of patience creates much safer conversations. And the safer the conversations are, they lead to deeper honesty. So the next time someone asks for time before continuing the conversation, try to see that moment differently. Instead of interpreting it as avoidance or anything negative like that, consider the possibility that it's preparation. Preparation to respond thoughtfully instead of emotionally. Preparation to communication with clarity instead of reaction. Not everyone processes conflict at the same speed. And understanding that difference can make conversations much healthier. Because when patience and clarity work together, relationships grow instead of becoming more fragile. Thanks for spending time with me today. Till next time, keep listening to your inner compass.